I was signing y'all. It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and man, the entire NFL dropped a bomb on Terry McLaurin, man. I don't think he's going to be very happy, but I think the Commanders will be happy. We're going to dive into everything that came out the past few days on the Terry McLaurin situation. Also, the Washington Commanders went and signed a starting level offensive tackle that has like over 70 starts under his belt. We're going to talk about where he fits on the roster and everything like that. And then they also went and signed a talented center as well. We're not projecting him to be a starter at all because we already have Tyler Biadasz to be our starter. But is he competing for that immediate backup center spot? Is there a real chance that he actually makes the final 53-man roster? We're going to dive into all of that and more. But before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. Super excited. The Commanders Kings will be live Sunday, August 24th at the Crystal City Sports Pub. So make sure you pull up if you got your tickets. And even if you can't get your tickets, I mean, because they're already sold out, but if you still want to support and donate, you can go to that exact same link, and there's different tiers of donations, and we will shout you out throughout the stream as well, throughout the live show, all of that, man. And again, this is going to be my first time meeting either of the other three Commanders Kings, Louis T, Ed Oliver, Rio Robinson, in person ever. So it's going to be special, man. I'm excited. Without further ado, let's go dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with this Terry McLaurin update. And this is basically like a catch up from everything we've heard about the Terry McLaurin situation since immediately after that Bengals preseason game. Going from Monday night up until now of Thursday, August 21st, everything Terry McLaurin related, we're going to talk about it. Well, first of all, DMV News Live reported that Terry McLaurin is unlikely to get the money he wants in a new deal with the Commanders. Basically, if anybody's going to bend or break, anybody's going to give in to the other side, is going to be Terry McLaurin giving in to the Commanders. Now, I know a lot of people are like, okay, that sounds great, but what's the proof? Again, let me preface this with, I try to remember to do this before every video like this one. We're bringing up reports and rumors from different sources and stuff like that. Take all of these with a grain of salt. Believe what you want to believe. I'm not here to decipher whether this is a trustworthy source or not. I try to filter out anything that's just like obviously just a random Twitter account or something like that. But other than that, just go ahead and take everything with a grain of salt. We're here to only talk about whether things make sense or not, and whether the Commanders should want it to happen, shouldn't want it to happen, all that type of stuff. We're here to break down logic and reasoning. I'm not here to break down who's trustworthy. So just kind of take everything with a grain of salt, but we're going to kind of assume that a lot of this information that's said is true. So from that report about Terry McLaurin is going to be unlikely to get the money that he's actually asking for. And again, there's reports coming out from several sources now. At first, it was only like one source a while ago, weeks ago, that he was asking for like $33 million or more, like somewhere DK Metcalf money or more. Now it's been like several different people from several different networks all saying the same thing. This man, Terry McLaurin, is basically tripping. So Deanna Rossini came out and said, canvassing the league's decision makers. Now, this is not necessarily a source tied in with the Commanders. This is not Adam Peters. This is not Dan Quinn or anything like that. This is Deanna Rossini asking people around the NFL, other NFL execs, coaches, whatever, GMs. She's asking them, just to mind you for this. But she said it's hard to find anyone believing that Terry McLaurin will get the number that he and his camp are asking for from Washington in a new deal. So that means that even if another team would trade for Terry McLaurin, Terry still couldn't get the contract that he's asking for. That's his market. His market is set. So ultimately, you might as well go ahead and sign for less than what you want with the Commanders rather than signing for less than what you want with another team. The Super Bowl contender Commanders, where you already live, you already have chemistry with an elite top 5 quarterback and everything. You don't want to have to displace your family and stuff like that if you don't have to. And if everybody's offering you the same exact amount, I know you want a certain amount, but the market is set, man. So you're just going to have to end up signing for what the market says, man. And it sucks that age plays a role in this because he hasn't played as many seasons as somebody typically of 30 years old going into their 30-year-old season has played. And especially with the fact that he's never missed a game like the last 4 or 5 years. But at the same time, man, Adam Peters is like, bro, you're 30. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you got drafted at like age 24, you're 30 now. So it is what it is. But coming from Deanna Rossini, she said most decision makers in the NFL fall between $27 to the $28 million range as far as like what they'd pay Terry McLaurin. If they were in the Commander situation, or if they were a team that wanted Terry McLaurin and were willing to trade for him, they're only willing to pay around $27 to $28 million, which is around the number that I heard that Adam Peters is willing to offer from the Commander side. So maybe this is NFL collusion. Maybe all the NFL teams got together and was like, man, we're going to hard press Terry. Hey, Adam Peters, you better not offer him more than $27 to $28 million. We're going to all say that's what we're all willing to give him. And then at the end of the day, he's going to have to end up signing for that, because where else could he get it from? There's not even like an NFL team out there that's trying to deviate and sneak around and try to snake us or anything like that, and then offer him more and are like, hey, we'll trade for you and pay you more money. It doesn't sound like that right now. And we've been hearing this since Mike Garafolo just like over a week ago, saying that like, yeah, it's not like the phone has been booming for the Commanders as far as a Terry McLaurin trade situation. Because again, not only do you have to trade for Terry McLaurin, then you got to pay him whatever money he's apparently wanting. And it sounds like nobody's willing to do that. Deanna Rossini also said, I have a hard time finding anyone who's giving me the number that I think the Terry McLaurin camp is actually asking for. So everybody's just, even people that have no interest in Terry McLaurin, people that may have interest in Terry McLaurin, the Commanders, everybody's somewhere below 30 million at least. We don't exactly know what number everybody's at, but it sounds like Terry McLaurin is asking for at least 33 million or more per year, and the Commanders and the entire NFL market is looking at him like, what? Man, who you think you is, man? But either way, shouts out to Danny Rouet. He brought up a great point. He said there's still a lot we don't know, of course, but most everything, to me, points to the agent being out of his depth. And in my opinion, it's the biggest reason we're here. I do think he's out of touch. I think it's a mix of out of touch, and also, like I've said several times, I think he's using Terry McLaurin as the golden ticket to gain credibility in the agent and NFL circles, to where other top NFL players are going to want him to represent them. Right now, Terry McLaurin is his meal ticket to, again, Terry is his only like top paid player right now. It's Terry, I forgot the other guy's name, but it's like a big gap in between them. And then after that guy, I think it's immediately like Jeremy Chin. And you don't have to go very far down this list. It's like in the top 8, you have like a DeAndre Carter. And I love DeAndre Carter and I love Jeremy Chin. I miss those guys, but you know, it's not like this guy just has a bunch of really talented, highly paid guys that he's representing. It's just Terry McLaurin. And we're talking about Terry has a big gap on everybody else that he's representing on the current contract that he doesn't want to play under, let alone the contract that he's trying to get. So I think this guy is kind of trying to not necessarily take advantage of Terry McLaurin, but he's definitely prioritizing his own self-interest over what Terry wants. Because I'm pretty sure Terry, if he was just representing himself or being represented by another agent, he probably would have signed by now. I think it's this Buddy Baker guy that's trying to stall and trying to pinch for every single penny they can get. And Sidonia brought up a great point. This is ultimately Terry's fault, because he chose him to represent him. And it's, of course, going to look crazy with the fact that Buddy Baker is from the same exact hometown as Terry McLaurin, Indianapolis. So it just looks like he has this hometown friend that he's trying to do a favor and trying to put him on. Like, we going to make it big together type of thing. And it's an ugly situation right now. And so George Carmi also brings up a good point. He said, I'm curious. Do you see any parallels between the way Adam Peters treated Brian Robinson and Terry McLaurin? I understand negotiations are business, but it seems like the front office can be pretty resolute in their stance on players. They were pretty decisive with Jonathan Allen, Jahan Dotson, and now Brian Robinson. Is Terry McLaurin potentially next? I mean, it does seem like Adam Peters, once he has his heels dug in, and he's not moving from that bar. I mean, I already did a full video a couple of days ago breaking down how other NFL execs, other NFL GMs don't necessarily like negotiating with Adam Peters because you can't take advantage of him, basically. It was essentially worded in a way that it sounded negative, but it was ultimately a compliment to him, like, this guy doesn't budge. We can't finesse him. We can't take advantage of him. He doesn't move from what he exactly expects, wants, demands, whatever. And so Terry McLaurin is finding out the hard way right now. And then Mike Hall of the Breaking the Zone podcast brought up a good point. He said Terry needs to come back to reality and focus on trying to get the team to offer up the 28-ish as much guarantees as possible. Unless he has a Jamar Chase level year, not going to happen. What does he think he's going to get offered next year, 1 year older, and with more tread on his tires? I completely agree. It's like, Terry, man, you better take what you can get right now, because this time, next offseason, it's only going to get worse. And like I said, the Commanders could be petty and franchise tag him after this year, and then that would really hurt him. So, either way, moving on to Mark Phillips, he said if the Commanders decide to break off negotiations when the season starts, Terry is screwed. He will not get the $28 million next offseason that reportedly the Commanders are offering, and if he chooses to hold out until the last possible moment to get credit for this year of service, it would only kill his market value going into the next year. And again, he's struggling to get the money that he wants because he's about to be 30 in September. I mean, how much better do you think it's going to be when you're 31 next September? Like, how much more money do you think you're going to be able to pull out of the situation when you're 1 year older than you already are right now, when you're struggling? And then shouts out to Burgundy Blog. He said Debo and Jalen look ready, especially in those preseason games and everything we've heard and seen from training camp. The vets are vets, and Jaden can probably work with anything. I think Terry will be well advised to agree to something or agree to nothing and just get on the train like now. You don't want to get left behind, man. This is a potential Super Bowl contender. It's not many opportunities that you get to not only play with an elite quarterback like Jaden Daniels, but to compete for a Super Bowl. Like Von Miller, future first ballot Hall of Famer Von Miller, pulled up this year to ring chase because after he left the Bills, he looked everywhere and was like, I feel like that's the team that probably gives me the best chance to not only win a Super Bowl, but also to have a positive impact. Because, of course, there are other Super Bowl contenders out there that they just happen to have already great edge rushers. So Von Miller would just be sitting there riding the bench, I guess, essentially, or barely playing. We were like the perfect combination of Super Bowl contender and also giving them an opportunity to positively impact games and be one of the reasons that we win a Super Bowl. So shouts out to him. But the point is, everybody's bought in. Debo Samuel is excited to be there. Laramie Tunsil is. Dietrich Wise and Jonathan Jones just left the Patriots to come pull up to the Commanders. Even with all of the history that they have, like, everybody's bought in. It's time for Terry McLaurin to jump in as well. Then Shane Peacher pointed out the fact that, wow, Danny just crushed Terry on the radio. Said he's acting selfish and like a prima donna for skipping the game. That was interesting. The fact that like Trey Hendrickson was there and Terry wasn't, and Trey Hendrickson is way further away from getting a new deal with the Bengals than Terry is with the Commanders. So I thought that was interesting as well. But like I said, I feel like Terry just wanted to avoid the attention because if y'all noticed in that preseason game, and I called it even before the preseason game started, once we heard that Terry McLaurin would not be there, I literally said in my live stream before the game even started, the camera is going to be on Trey Hendrickson the entire time, constantly. They're going to keep talking about it. They're going to keep bringing up stats. They're going to keep talking about his contract and stuff like that. Terry probably didn't want that attention. But going back to Shane Peacher, Danny said that even Trey Hendrickson, who called his coach a liar, was at the game. Parsons said he wants no part of the Cowboys anymore and even showed up to the game for his teammates. So it is a little weird that Terry was not there. I did think that was pretty weird. Maybe he just doesn't want to deal with that DMV traffic. I don't know. And Sidonia Ave said, I love Terry and can't wait for him to return, but I didn't like the fact that he wasn't there. I'm not going to lie. It was a little weird. That was probably like the one move that Terry has done where I'm like, okay, like this is getting a little weird. Like him speaking out at the Easter Motors thing, of course, he wanted to get the ball rolling, requesting a trade. The weird hold-in thing, especially bringing like your agent there, was weird as well. But I think him not showing up to the stadium was like the biggest statement he's made yet, because that was crazy. I mean, a lot of guys that didn't even play, of course, like Larry Tunsil, Bobby Wagner, Von Miller, neither of those guys played in the game. They already knew going into that game they wouldn't play in that game, and they still went. So that was really weird. This shouts out to the team 980. John Com told the Junkies that he was surprised that Holden Terry McLaurin had an excused absence, but Trey Hendrickson traveled with the Bengals. He was basically insinuating like, I mean, I guess the Commanders knew ahead of time that he wasn't going to show up, and the fact that instead of trying to win the PR battle and putting his name out there like, nah, we want him here, Terry just doesn't want to pull up. They offered to say excused absence to kind of make it look better on Terry McLaurin's part. Like maybe it makes us fans think maybe there's something else going on. Maybe it's not just the contract or something like that. But again, there were guys that knew already before the game even started that they weren't going to play and still went to the game. But shouts out to the Commanders for trying to help Terry McLaurin PR-wise at least a little bit, because the whole fake ankle injury and putting him on the PUP list took pressure off of him from the fan base as well, making it look like, oh, he has an injury anyway. He wouldn't be playing or practicing anyway because he has an injury. It has nothing to do with the contract. Like, the Commanders are doing so many things to make Terry McLaurin not look as much like the villain as he already does to the fan base. They could be doing them way worse. They could just let Terry McLaurin go out there and fight for himself, fend for himself, just drown out there in the ugly PR battle that he's trying to win right now. But the Commanders are doing them some favors, so shouts out to the Commanders and salute to them for trying to make Terry McLaurin not look as bad as most fans probably would if the Commanders just stayed out of it. If the Commanders just didn't micromanage the situation, Terry would look way crazier, bro. I mean, just to go out there, stick your neck out for him and say, it's an excused absence. That's on us that Terry McLaurin wasn't at the game. We know it wasn't the Commanders' idea. I understand the Brian Robinson one, but Terry was crazy. Now, moving on to the next part of the video. Washington signed a starting level offensive tackle, man. 75 starts in his NFL career, man. And as you can see in this clip right here, he's already at the practice and everything like that. This was a couple of days ago. No, this was yesterday. My fault. Yesterday feels like a couple of days ago. As many videos I'm doing and all of the stuff I got going on, even outside of StreetScores and stuff like that. That feels like that was 2-3 days ago. But this was just yesterday during a jog through. And I still got to break down a lot of the stuff that went down yesterday in practice and today. So I'll probably do that later on tonight or this evening or something like that. Because I want y'all to go ahead and know. Today's practice, Thursday, August 21st, is the last training camp practice. After this, it's the Ravens preseason game on Saturday. And then after that, any practice that we have is focused solely on preparing for the regular season. We will have already cut down to the final 53-man roster. And most importantly, especially for me and y'all, media access, like the reporters and all of that type of stuff, is cut off. We will not get to see anything or hear anything unless Dan Quinn tells you in a press conference. We're not going to know anything that's going on. Nothing. No videos, no updates, no media members going to the practices and updating us on, Jalen Lane made this catch against such a, like, none of that. All of that is done. So today's practice is the last, I guess, practice breakdown I'm going to do this off season. So make sure you stay tuned. I can't wait to get back to it next year. But man, we got to go win a Super Bowl this year. But either way, George Fant was signed by the Commanders. He was a former Seahawk. The respected veteran with 75 career starts lands in Washington after working out with the team last week. And I'm pretty excited about this signing, man. And shouts out to Seawall Sports because she called it. She said it back on like August 18th or 17th or something like that, hey, watch out, we're probably going to end up signing George Fant, and I wanted to make sure that that was known. And then also, not only did he work out with the Commanders, he worked out with the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, and the Ravens earlier this offseason, and I thought that was interesting that he ended up signing with us. I don't know if he chose us or if the other teams just didn't want him as much as we wanted him, but I'm happy to have him. This is excellent depth right here. Again, this is a guy that has 75 career starts under his belt that's coming in to basically be a backup for us. So that's excellent depth right there, and we need it on this offensive line with all of the injuries that we're dealing with. And he also beat out Cam Fleming. They came to work out together all the way back on like August 14th or something like that. Both of them worked out, and the Commanders just a week later, basically, or a few days later, ended up choosing George Fant over Cam Fleming. And like I even said in my breakdown from way back then, a few days ago, when I first announced that they were working out, I said that I would prefer George Fant between the two. Even though I do like Cam Fleming, I prefer George Fant. But we do have injuries to the offensive line. There's a reason we're bringing this guy in. I mean, if everybody's 100% healthy, we don't have this worry. We probably don't sign this guy. Just to let you know, so it's not like we're signing like this future Hall of Famer that's about to go out there and start games for us or anything like that. Not even trying to bait y'all into that, but this is excellent depth because right now, Brandon Coleman, he just returned. Your starting left guard just got back, and I want you to know that he finally practiced today, Thursday, the final training camp practice, and apparently it was fully padded and stuff like that, so that's great news. But he's been dealing with an injury to the point that Andrew Wiley, who's our backup swing tackle, who George Fant will eventually, ultimately end up being if he ends up making the final 53-man roster, which I think he will. Like, Andrew Wiley's supposed to be your backup tackle to where if either Laramie Tunsil or Josh Connolly have to sit for whatever reason, injury or whatever, Andrew Wiley can step in either of those guys' places. Now that's George Fant's job. George Fant and we're going to talk about it a little later. George Fant has so much experience at both left tackle and right tackle. I honestly trust him a little bit more at left tackle, even though I can see why the Commanders would trust Andrew Wiley more, at least at right tackle, especially since he started there for you last season. But Andrew Wiley, because of Brandon Coleman being hurt since like a single-digit August number, like August 4th or something like that, August 2nd, something crazy. It's been a long time since Brandon Coleman's been out, hasn't practiced, none of that. Andrew Wiley's been your starting left guard in practices. So we're just all over the place. And of course, Samuel Cosme's still recovering from an ACL surgery that he had after he got hurt in that Detroit Lions playoff win. I don't even like to say game. I like to say win to remind people we whipped up on those Detroit Lions in Detroit, man. And don't forget, we even brought in like a Lucas Niang like 2 weeks ago too. And he was supposed to be your backup swing tackle. And then he just tore his ACL against the Patriots in that preseason game. So then we were right back to where we started, where we still needed more offensive line depth. And Linnell Willingham brings up a good point. He said, I have to wonder what George Fant signing means for the health of Brandon Coleman. Need another tackle because Wiley is going to potentially be inside full-time if Coleman can't go. But again, we're hearing things about Brandon Coleman. We saw, just to let you know, he did return to practice today. I think he technically returned yesterday through a jog through, but that was a jog through. So I don't want to hype that up as this, oh man, Brandon Coleman super back, we're great to go. But the fact that he practiced today, Thursday, the final training camp practice with full pads, full contact and stuff like that, that is huge news. But hey, it still wouldn't hurt to have a guy that played 101 games in 75 starts in his career, man. I mean, he, at the very least, he's a decent starting option, but a very high floor backup. I'm surprised that it took us this long to sign him, but I guess they would prefer Lucas Niang first because he's the guy with the higher ceiling. He's younger. Like George Fant is like 33. Lucas Niang is definitely in his 20s somewhere, and so they probably were, banking on the fact that they're going to take the younger guy first, give him an opportunity, and that's always been Lucas Niang's problem: injuries. He used to be a starting offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs during his Pat Mahomes era at one point. He just couldn't stay healthy. He came here, already started to show promise, and then got hurt again, so now we pivoted to George Fant. And then shouts out to Greg Allman. He's a Buccaneers fan or reporter. He said George Fant would give the Bucs a much more experienced option as a short-term replacement for Wirfs at the start of the season, because Tristan Wirfs is banged up and he's not expected to be there week 1 starting for the Buccaneers, as opposed to Charlie Heck as the best current in-house option. So even Buccaneers fans are like confused that why didn't we sign George Fant? You know what I'm saying? He's a better than anything we have behind Tristan Wirfs right now as far as a starting left tackle. So shouts out to the Commanders for somehow sniping away that elite depth. Again, Fant, 33 years old. He signed on with the Seahawks as an undrafted free agent out of Western Kentucky back in 2016. He finished a 3-year rookie contract before the Seahawks used a second-round restricted tender on him worth $3.095 million for the 2019 season. Restricted free agents is like a really weird concept. It's not very common. I feel like we used them a lot more in the Rivera era and way less now under Brandon Sosna and Adam Peters. An unrestricted free agent in 2020, Fant signed a 3-year, $27.3 million deal with the Jets. He then became a free agent again in 2023, signing with the Texans on a 1-year deal. Mind you, he played alongside Laremy Tunsil for that year. Laremy Tunsil was there. Laremy Tunsil was a starting left tackle, and then George Fant was a starting right tackle. The Seahawks signed Fant to a 1-year contract last off-season, and then in 2024, Fant appeared in 2 games for the Seahawks, blocking for Geno Smith and those guys. And shouts out to Josh Taylor of A to Z Sports for bringing this up, that Fant has mostly played an even split between left and right tackle in his career, which helps with how the Commanders can decide the fate of others, because he's played 2,154 snaps at left tackle and 2,092 snaps at right tackle over his 8 career seasons in the NFL. That is so well balanced. I definitely trust him that when in doubt, if we need a guy to play left tackle, I can trust George Fant to do that. I'm pretty uncomfortable with Andrew Wiley starting the left tackle for you for any reason. Left guard, cool. Right guard, cool. Right tackle, we've already seen he can handle that, especially with Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator that kind of, hides his weaknesses in that area, because Andrew Wiley's definitely a better guard than he is tackle, but he's fine at tackle as long as Cliff Kingsbury's your offensive coordinator and not somebody like Eric Bieniemy that's just throwing them out there to the wolves and not giving them tight end or wide receiver or even running back chip help, double teams or whatever. But at the end of the day, Andrew Wiley, when in doubt, ultimately is better as a backup guard for you. And let Nick Allegretti be a backup guard / center. I prefer Trent Scott as a backup interior offensive lineman as well instead of a tackle, but they probably consider him a backup tackle as well. But George Fant, so much experience at both left tackle and right tackle, man. I trust him to replace Laremy Tunsil at left tackle if he would ever get hurt for any crazy reason. Now, if Josh Connolly were to get hurt, I'm cool with Andrew Wiley there. Probably even prefer George Fant right there as well. And then also, Fant recently played as a backup right tackle for the Seahawks last season, but he only saw the field 30 times. And then also, he started 13 games 2 years ago for Houston, again, with his time playing next to Laremy Tunsil. He started 915 snaps on the right side opposite of Laremy Tunsil and allowed only 3 sacks and 4 hits in that season, which isn't great, but you know what I'm saying? You could do way worse. So I think he has a real chance to actually make this final 53-man roster. Like, out of all of the guys that we've signed since the start of training camp practices, I feel like George Fant honestly has the highest chance. I like the fact that the Commanders went with the strategy of we're going to bring in a bunch of young guys over and over again throughout the early parts of the offseason, especially the early parts of training camp. And then as we start to get closer to the regular season, as we're breezing through the preseason, you know, once we're not sure about certain guys, now we can bring in the veterans. Now we can bring in the older guys. All right, we just need a certain level of floor here. They bet on ceiling early, and they probably hit on a few. Of course, you're never going to hit on all of them. And so now, after trying to bet on some ceiling and it didn't work out as far as backup offensive tackles, now they just went ahead and signed the guy that they're sure about. And, you know, there's no reason to necessarily sign the guy that you're sure about that comes with the high floor early on in the offseason. You might as well take your chances with a higher ceiling guy. So I love the way that they went about this. And I love the fact that they had George Fant in the back pocket just in case they didn't like what they saw from guys like Lucas Niang, who, again, ended up getting hurt. But again, out of all of the guys that we've signed since the start of training camp practices, George Fant definitely has the highest chance, in my opinion. That's including wide receivers Tay Martin and Braylon Sanders. That's including linebacker Duke Riley and defensive backs Antonio Hamilton and Darryl Worley, or anybody else that we've signed since training camp practices have started. I'm not talking about way back in March and April during like the waves of free agency. I'm talking about since training camp practices started, George Fant easily has the best chance of making this roster. And if anybody, I have my money on Fant because he could end up being your backup swing tackle while Wiley flexes inside if we need him to be. Again, especially if Brandon Coleman's injury, you know, we're super optimistic about the fact that he returned to practice today. And, you know, Dan Quinn typically holds people out until they're 110% ready to go. So I'm just going to assume that Brandon Coleman is great to go and we shouldn't have to worry about him getting banged up again. But just in case, worst case scenario, you have George Fant here to be your backup swing tackle, and Andrew Wiley can, instead of being your backup swing tackle, could be one of your backup interior offensive linemen. So while Tunsil and Connolly started both tackle positions, Fant can be your Cornelius Lucas replacement, essentially, as a tackle that can step in if there's ever an injury to either position. And as you saw in that clip earlier, George Fant is, of course, wearing number 64. Not a very pretty number, but hey, it's the number that he got. Also, Dan Quinn talked about signing George Fant. He talked about it yesterday in that jog-through practice. He said, quote, "It's a big deal to add somebody with his experience and length at tackle. That's also another important thing, too. He's like a really long guy. He's a pretty good pass protector. It's very cool. With his experience and background and play style and skill, we're really pumped," unquote. So this team, again, they kind of waited to kind of give some younger, higher ceiling guys opportunities in training camp. Nobody, I guess, stepped up to the level that they needed to. And again, Lucas Niang got hurt. So they were like, all right, well, we have this guy that we know comes with a certain level of floor and dependability to him. So we're going to bring him in later on. No reason to bring him in early. Just wait until the other guys show that they can't do it and then go get you a George Fant. Now moving on to the other guy that we signed. And this guy was earlier today. Washington signed center Nick Harris. He spent 5 years with Cleveland, and that's 45 games played with only 6 starts, but that's still 6 starts, and he missed 2022 with a knee injury, basically. And just to let you know, shouts out to Resh Manuel. I don't know how he does this, but Nick Harris played for offensive line coach and former NFL vet Pat Harlow in high school. Harlow's son, Sean, played center for Dan Quinn in Atlanta, Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, and Bobby Johnson in New York. I'm not even sure if Nick Harris understands that connection right there. That is insane. I don't know how Resh Manuel does that, man. I don't know what database he's accessing to do this, but it's crazy the connections that he's able to pull. But when we signed Nick Harris, when I saw that, my immediate question was, is he better than Michael Dieter? As far as being a better backup center option for us behind Tyler Biadasz, is he better than Michael Dieter? Because I highly doubt both of these guys will make the roster. It's basically one or the other. It's a battle between those two. Because don't forget that Nate Herbig retired just a couple of weeks ago. He was supposed to be a backup center. Remember, he was supposed to be the starting center for the Steelers in that 2024 season. He got hurt very early on and then missed the entire season. Then we signed him. I'm super excited. I felt like he was one of the most underrated free agency signings that we had all offseason. And then he just retired out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago. So that definitely caught me by surprise. That definitely caught the Commanders by surprise as well, because they definitely had big plans for him. Because remember, last year, our starting center, Tyler Biadasz, who is a Pro Bowler, but he got hurt 2 games last year. Michael Dieter had to step in and start like 2 games for you and probably play in some more games that Tyler Biadasz technically started in. And so, you know, we just can't assume that Tyler Biadasz is going to be available for you all 21 games that we play this season, including the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? I'm speaking it into existence. So we do need a center that's dependable, that can go out there and perform if we need him to. I don't like Michael Dieter, so I'm hoping this Nick Harris guy is better. I can't confirm it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I just sat down and watched all crazy amounts of all 22 in this guy to know whether he's better than Michael Dieter or not. I'm just going to hope that he is. But just to kind of catch you up on everything, the Commanders did release offensive lineman Julian Good-Jones yesterday, Wednesday, August 20th. And so the Commanders went ahead and added another guy to kind of step in and take that guy's place on the roster. Because Julian Good-Jones is mostly a guard, but we saw him doing some center stuff in that preseason game against the Bengals a few days ago. And I feel like that was more so just side quest time. I feel like if you've seen Office Space, moving the guy with the red stapler, just moving him around and stuff like that, I feel like Julian Good-Jones, more naturally a guard, he wasn't playing well enough at guard, so they were like, all right, in this Bengals preseason game, we're going to give you a shot at center, because this is like your last opportunity to show us that you can do anything, and I guess he wasn't good at that, so they tried him at center, they cut him, and then they bring in another center. And again, this is a guy that comes in with a decent floor. Julian Good-Jones, they were trying to bank on and bet on his potential as a younger guy. Once the younger guy didn't work out, let's go get the older guy that's more dependable, that's a higher floor. Maybe not as high of a ceiling or potential to him, but at least we know what we're getting. Those are the type of guys, like I explained earlier, you sign later in the offseason. Harris, a 4-year starter at Washington, earned first-team All-Pac-12 honors before he entered the league as a 5th-round pick in 2020 and spent most of his career with the Browns. The 26-year-old played in 40 games from 2020 to 2023, missing the entire 2022 season with a knee injury. After signing with the Seahawks in free agency in 2024, he was traded back to Cleveland in August, and last year, Harris appeared in 5 games for the Browns, starting twice before being placed on injured reserve in October with an ankle injury. So injuries are the reason that he didn't start a lot of games last year. And then the Commanders, of course, have starting center Tyler Biadasz, with guards, technically backup center Michael Dieter, and guard Nick Allegretti backing those guys up. But then again, Nick Allegretti's probably going to have to start at right guard for you until Samuel Cosmi's back healthy. But then we also have Trent Scott, who stepped in very well for Samuel Cosmi in that Detroit Lions game, and so he's a backup guard that's also in the mix as well. Harris is a more natural center. Michael Dieter is kind of like center and guard. Nick Allegretti's guards, even though he's been getting snaps at center this offseason to try to cross-train him to see if he can handle it. I haven't seen any evidence that he can, that he's done a great job at it. And Trent Scott, they feel like he's more of a tackle, but I feel like he played way better at guard against the Detroit Lions than I've ever seen him play at tackle in any other game situation. So we basically have a lot of guards. Even though Michael Dieter can play a little bit of center, we saw last year that he wasn't very good at center. So Nick Harris is like your one true center that's behind your other true center, your Pro Bowler, and Tyler Biadasz. So we'll see. Maybe he makes it to the 53-man roster over Michael Dieter, but I feel like at worst, he's going to end up on the practice squad. So he's going to stick around, and then they're probably going to wait until he gets acclimated to the Cliff Kingsbury offense, and then maybe he'll replace Michael Dieter. Like, maybe he's already better naturally than Michael Dieter right now, but he doesn't know the offense. He doesn't know the playbook. So I'm just going to assume that with like around 3 weeks, maybe less than 3 weeks until we play the Giants on September 7th, and less than that, just a few days from now, less than a week from now, we got to cut the 53-man rosters. Just because he doesn't know the playbook, he's probably going to lose out that final 53-man roster spot to Michael Dieter, but they'll probably keep him on the practice squad until he learns the playbook, and I wouldn't be surprised if they replace Michael Dieter with Nick Harris to be your backup center on the official roster at some point early in the regular season. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. If you're still watching me right now, big salute to you. Really appreciate you just for that alone, man. Personally, thank you for making it this far in the video. Also, make sure you leave a like on the way out. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about the whole Terry McLaurin situation. Honestly, like, this is crazy. Like, right now, the whole NFL is looking at Terry like, boy, I don't know what you got going on or what you thought you would, but you ain't that. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was interesting that the Commanders aren't tripping. The entire NFL is looking at Terry like, I don't know where you think you about to get that kind of money from anybody. And then also let me know how you feel about the Commanders signing a starting level offensive tackle that's purely just going to be a backup for us. And also, how do you feel about this other talented center that we brought in that's more of a natural center than even Michael Dieter? Let me know how you feel about everything. I'm going to try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. I've been super busy, so I haven't been able to do that for the past few days like I wanted to. I've seen some of the comments, but I just haven't had the time to actually sit down and reply. I really want to sit down and do that. On the way to Virginia for this Commanders Kings live show, I'll probably be able to find some time then to reply to as many comments as I can. So really appreciate y'all. Leave a like on the way out, and I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.